Monkeys. You're watching Cannabis Culture News Live. I'm Jeremiah Vandermeer, editor of Cannabis Culture and Pod TV. My co-host, John Berfelo. Johnny B on the couch. Johnny B.
What's up, Pod TV? How are you guys doing today?
What's up, guys? Hopefully you can see and hear us. Let me just make sure these mics are working okay. I think so. Looks good over here.
Here, you might as well have a toke of this.
Ah, what are you smoking on, Johnny?
Something delicious. Wow, Jeff, eh? Jeff, 22 years behind bars.
I know.
Fuck. Yeah. You know what? I mean, it was. I watched it like live. It was cool. You know, it was crazy.
Crazy 22 years.
22 years.
A guy goes to jail for that long.
Well, you know what? Pot. He had life, so at least he got out. But, I mean, you know what?
Right, and
times are changing.
It's the 3-strike rule that worked against him. So if you get busted doing something 3 times, you're in big fucking trouble.
3 joints 22 years ago gave him fucking, you know.
Yeah, well, at least they overturned this one. So Johnny sparked it off right away. We're talking about Jeff Mizanskey, who was just released from prison.
Well, it's just huge news, and it's right in front of me, and as we're talking about it, and as everybody knows, and if you don't know, we're going to tell you more about it.
Yeah, well, we're going to watch a video, actually.
We actually got a video?
I even got the video queued up. Now, look, I see another video here. Oh, that one looks like a longer video. I've got just like a minute and something video. Let's watch this video. Well,
okay,
let's just make sure that the chatters... hey, guys. The chatters are there. What's up, guys? Okay, everything looks good. So
everybody's happy?
Looks and sounds good, they say. All right, let's watch
Everybody's
this vid.
Smoking weed right now. If anybody in chat, if you don't have a joint or a bong or a dab going, I think you should. Jer, would you like this?
No, I can't agree with that.
Puff and
yes,
pass.
I would absolutely love that.
I'm going to do a dab, actually. Look at this beautiful hash that I made,
Dab it
guys.
on.
Look at that.
Ooh, hold that up.
I know, it's just this stable. This is like the second run.
Closer.
Second run hash. Tasty.
Very nice. A nice joint you got there, too.
Well, you know what? People think that I don't smoke joints.
They're absolutely wrong.
100%.
Absolutely wrong.
Just letting you know, I smoke and consume all different forms of cannabis on a daily basis.
Yeah, hell yeah. Me too, man. As many different kinds as possible. Different types and ways. Okay, let's watch this video about Jeff, and then we'll be back to talk some more.
Good for Jeff.
Yeah.
Good for Jeff.
These are Jeff Mizanskey's first steps outside the Jefferson City Correctional Center in more than 20 years.
Love you, Dad. Finally.
Greeted by more than a dozen friends and family members, these were some of his first words as a free man.
There's a lot of people in here that deserve the same thing. Hope they get it.
Mizanskey says even though he's out now, his work is far from over.
It was cruel and unusual. It's a shame. There's people in here that are in here for molesting children. And I've seen them come, go, and come again, and go.
He and his family say they're focused on issues like prison reform and getting marijuana legalized in the state of Missouri. Mizanskey was sentenced to life without parole for 3 nonviolent marijuana offenses under a law that's now been repealed by the state legislature.
We've got a lot of work to do. Get this legalized. Nobody deserves to be in there for marijuana.
Mizanskey says he'll spend some much-needed time at home with his family, but then he'll get back to work.
I'll be probably going around talking to a lot of people, and I don't know if I'm always going to be politically correct, but no, it'll be coming from my heart.
In Jefferson City, Matt Evans, KABC 9 News.
There you have it. So, wow, 6 pounds they caught him with, and he says he wasn't selling it. He's never admitted that he was selling pot. And the governor of Missouri, Jay Nixon, is the governor. He actually allowed him to get out there. It was Nixon. What did he do here? He was the guy working on the case. He commuted his sentence to life with the option of parole. So Nixon did something good. It's funny. I don't know if there's any relation, Jay Nixon, to President Milhouse.
I'm sorry, I was
dabbing,
smoking, and then smoking.
Nice work, Johnny. So, a little bit later in the show today, I wasn't able to put up a show post today. It's been a super busy day for me. But
crazy busy day.
Today on the show, in a little bit, we're going to play a video by Chris Bennett, which is an interview with Martin Lee, who is the author of Acid Dreams.
Yeah.
And another book, I think it's, what's the new one called? Smoke Signals. And Chris does a great interview with him.
Well, because you didn't make a post, I figured maybe I will.
Jodie?
Well, thank you.
But Johnny, I wanted to talk to you about your videos that you've been posting.
I'm having a lot of fun.
Yeah, you said that one of them you just posted, it's already got 600 views, the one you posted this morning.
Yeah.
What's the name of it? It won't connect to your internet over there?
I know, we're having internet
problems.
problems. That's just first feed. And that's this is the room that I've been working on and getting more into what I'm talking about is everything that's happening with Health Canada and what the governments are saying and stuff like that. So I took into everything they said in the courtrooms about HPS bulbs and fire hazards and all the problems they're saying was going on. And you know what? I built that perfect room because I'm going to continue growing no matter what happens with the court case because I'm growing my medicine. I mean, it's what I do. So you know what? This is my first new room going with LED ceramic metal highlight. We got the new Gavitas, so it's just something new. And at the same time, I managed to pick myself up the gas chromatographer, so I got a GC, which I came and showed you all of the standards and stuff like that. And
and you managed to get the standards for them as well, right? Like,
I got everything.
Yeah. So hold on a sec here. Why?
So it's about people asking am I going to be charged for testing. I'm not going to be charging for testing because I'm not working. This is not something I'm doing. I want to do.
This is not a business for you.
It's not a business. No, not at all. This is about doing research and being able to give people information. So asking a lot of questions. I'm going to be answering some questions and seeing what goes on and see what happens here. We're talking about Tuesdays and maybe doing a show for Pod TV and Testy Tuesdays and
Testy Tuesdays.
And see what happens with that. So.
Well, that would be very cool. I'd love to see how it actually works to learn the science
Well, it'd be nice to see,
like
with the bubble hash or the rosin or what's the difference? The difference between the 25, the 45, the 73 and 90. Let's find the difference in terpenes. It'll be, I'm curious. So
and it basically what a gas chromatograph does is it burns a small portion of the material, and then it basically is giving you the weight of the gas itself. Is that correct? What is it that's happening there?
Well, that sounds. I'm just the guy that was able to
giving
work
you some
with an
sort of,
HPLC.
Is it an atomic sort of weight?
I don't.
Giving you what is happening with the gas chromatograph?
You're asking me details that I'm just. What? How about what are people in chat saying?
These are things that I've wanted to know for a long time. The finer details of how it actually works, because if it's being used for testing so much in the marijuana community, and we've actually talked to people at Steep Hill. Or what's the name of that laboratory?
Steep Hill Labs.
Steep Hill Labs, yeah. I've had them on the show before. We've discussed it in detail with them, but we were never actually able to nail down, there's a set of standards that's used, but what does it all really actually mean in terms of THC and THCA?
This is what I was just talking about here. So this specific machine here, guys, this is made by a company down in the U.S. called SRI. And this machine is specifically for testing cannabis, residue solvents and extractions, and terpenes. So the software is called Easy
brick
Peak.
Of a machine there.
It's called Easy Peak because it's so easy to read and understand. So what's interesting in today's society with the new legalization and stuff, which is really cool, is when you get all your information and you get your standards. Of course, I have my binder here, so pop that side right there.
Got your homework with you. Oh, sorry.
You get all your different terpenes, and these are all the different terpenes that I'm able to load into the machine. But on the back, they tell you the times and then how you can actually mark all the different cannabinoids, so I know how everything is. Whereas before, we were learning that process when I was working with Dr. Hornby back in 2006 and stuff like that. So with all the new technology that's offered today with legalizations, it's really quite. It's exciting. It's really exciting that they're able to get the standards, be able to get the retention times, finding out how you can read the different cannabinoids on the graph, and then be able to find out exactly what medicine that you're taking. Looking at the cannabinoids and seeing why CBC or CBG might help me with my pain. And for me, I use certain strains for my pain, and now I can take a better look at them because I've never been able to take a look at the terpenes in them or anything like that, ever. I've tested the different cannabinoids years ago, but I have never looked at it in the last 5 years. So I have stuff from 5 years ago. I have caps from the time. I have stuff that is 10 years old that I can test and see the difference of what cannabinoids are gone. So it's just me giving you guys some information. That's it.
What it came down to before, when we were trying to figure out exactly what these measurements meant, they say there's this much THC percentage in this plant.
I'm looking at profile.
I see I know what you're doing, but this is the thing that I plan on. I really want to figure this out, because the percentages of what exactly? It's not of the weight of the plant material versus.
So you're gonna weigh out 0.1 of a gram, so a tenth of a gram. Mm-hmm. And you're gonna put that into 40 milliliters of solution, and that's gonna agitate for about 20 minutes at a certain temperature, so the cannabinoids dissolve in there. Mm-hmm. That then goes into I then have to go through another process. I'm going to do videos on all this and explain what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I'll be talking with tech support down in California. So if there's any questions, so we can just get on the phone. I actually already have their after hours number, because I'm getting really used to talking to these guys.
Yeah, I'm just looking at what gas chromatography really is. It's interesting stuff. Just the Wikipedia page here, and how it separates the different. It can show you
different liquids. I know what when I was working with Paul on the HPLC, that was a liquid. This one's gas. So his was a liquid chromatography, which was basically high price liquid chromatography. These ones are a lot cheaper. These are not 100 grand. They're not 20 grand. They're around the $10,000 mark. So they're not overly priced.
Mm-hmm. Now, the ones that the Steep Hill guys they had a mobile one, which wasn't the actual machine, but it was a machine that would shoot the pot with a laser, would measure what it looked like, would take a photograph of it, apparently on a micro scale, and then it would compare that photograph to photographs that were in the catalog of other pot that had been tested. Now, this is how Steep Hill does this when they come to the expos and stuff.
Okay.
So they're not actually doing gas chromatography in those little machines that they have. They're just, those machines are matching up what you have to this catalog of info that they've made with the gas chromatograph.
That's pretty cool. I haven't really looked at anybody else, what anybody's doing at all. I know what they've been doing at Harborside, because I was watching them back in 2007 when we were working, so it was really interesting. But
we'll probably we'll do a whole show on this, because
it's just going to be fun. It's going to be fun.
I want to see the process as it happens.
And the best part about it is these are now accessible. You can get them in Canada. They're out of Ontario, so people can now access these machines. And with the programs that are offered, we can do the research.
It's expensive to have your pot tested now, isn't it? Like, if you want,
I don't even know.
You don't know.
I have no idea what they charge. I have no idea what's out there.
I don't think it's cheap, because not everybody.
We
has
used to do
$100
a sample, and that was years ago. Then it was like you do lots, 10 samples for $500. What Paul was doing back in the days. But I mean, to me, it's testing is testing. I don't know what labs test in town. I know, like Matt, he has all the tests on his CBD Renee and stuff like that, so he knows his pricing and stuff like that. He would be the guy, because they have labs on the island and stuff like that. So, I'm not offering testing for. I'm doing testing for everybody.
That's awesome.
Cool
of you, Johnny.
Well.
I want a dab of something. You got something?
I'm just like, you know what? It's 4:17. I'm getting this going.
Get a 420 dab. And until 420, we should have a little conversation about something that I've been working on. I've been super, super busy the last couple of weeks. Aside from my regular Cannabis Culture Pod TV duties, building and implementing, putting into action, and it's all online now. The new Cannabis Culture store. It's cannabisculturehq.com, cannabisculturehq.com. And it's kind of like our old store. Our old store was really ugly, though, and wasn't very usable. It was very slow. And
well, you know what? It was just online these days, where everything is, and it wasn't navigated. You've done a great job on the new website.
Yeah, the new one looks a little better, with the help of some others here, like Megan and Gary and Laurent. We came up with a pretty cool store, and you guys can go and buy everything you need but the weed there right now. So there you go. But actually, all of our stuff's not in the store yet. We have a ton of stock that's not in the store. We don't even have like any bubble bags in there yet or any of that kind of stuff. We'll have all of our stock in there by the end of this week or next week at the very latest. But we also are working on glass blower collections.
A little bit of Astro Boy watermelon there, dabbed out. At 4:19, I give you a 1 minute warning dab.
Wow. 1 minute warning dab. Oh, shit, that was nice.
Did that work?
Good Lord. Yeah, that was really good. Yeah. Can't even remember what I was talking about. The store. Anyways, go check it out. You guys know it's a store. It has everything. Oh, I was going to say the glass blowers. What we're going to do is put a lot of heady glass in the store. So we want to have collections from all of our cool glass blower friends.
Just so everybody knows, it's a 1 minute warning.
So
yeah,
if you guys,
just letting you know. But probably 30 seconds to 420 now. So you might want to get those joints rolled.
1 minute warning to 420.
I see people are going for it.
Thomas Bong just texted
There you
me.
go.
Tommy Bong on the trip across Canada right now.
420. That's a happy 420.
It is 420. Happy 420, everybody. At the Cannabis Culture Lounge here at 307 West Hastings in Vancouver. If you're watching at home, come and join us. So, yeah, Tommy Bong and his crew, the Kind Selections boys, are cruising across Canada right now. I'm not sure where they are. Oh, baby. And Tommy, I think, has some video for us. Now, he doesn't have any for me yet, but I'm hoping to play it on the show sometime soon if we can get that over to me. He said he's been shooting stuff. I don't know if it's edited, but...
Trying to get as much in as we can for 420 right now. Okay, go.
Smoke.
I hope you guys are doing the same thing, puffing hard. Because it's a long weekend. Yeah. And everybody's getting ready for the long weekend.
What is it? What month is it?
Well, this is September.
It's Labor Day?
It's Labor Day long weekend. Kids are going back to school. All my friends are going to be free again.
days.
Jodie just walked in the house.
Oh, hi,
Great
Jodie.
to see her.
Jodie.
It's quiet.
Yeah.
The sun came out.
It's a sunny day.
The sun came out. And
Jodie Emery in the house. Hi, Jodie. Oh, and I didn't... You know who might be stopping by the building today? Did Mark pass this on to you at all? Raekwon. Yeah, might be stopping by. Raekwon from the Wu-Tang Clan's in town today. We're going to go see his show tonight. But he's hanging with a couple of our friends. And he's cruising around, checking out dispensaries and stuff. So
That's
if
fun.
there's... I'm not sure if there's going to be time or not, but... Ray wants to meet Mark. Last time he was in town, I talked to him about Mark for a long time, and he was really interested in the whole thing. Ray wanted to film a TV show about weed. So he's really into pot. And, but yeah, hopefully they'll swing past. Wu-Tang are amazing, 28 dabs later in the chat. See, a lot of the youngsters these days don't know about Wu-Tang because, it's 90s hip-hop. And they haven't really had any huge hits lately or anything. But Ray is still hitting it hard. He just has a new album, Fila, out. There's a bunch of stuff he's been working on for a long time. Ray especially is doing a lot of really cool stuff right now. Same with Ray's partner in crime, Ghostface, Iron Man. But yeah, Jodie is in the house as well and might be going to a Ray show tonight with us. Oh, Jodie. Is that it? That's right. Jodie says she knows. That's all you need to know is Wu-Tang Clan ain't nothing to fuck with. That's all you need to know. But go check out 36 Chambers, the album, the first album. That's the bomb.
Yeah.
And Ray's album, Only Built for Cuban Links.
I can't even comment on it because I can't really remember the 90s.
Right. You were a generation before that. You liked 80s rap. You were like a Run DMC guy, I bet, right?
Oh, yeah, I was Run DMC, of course, with Aerosmith.
Yeah, baby. Walk this way.
Yeah.
Getting dabbed out.
We just got to dab people out.
The princess of dabs. I wish we had a cam over here.
That was, that's the watermelon. I made that the other day.
Everybody says hi, Jodie, in the chat. Actually, it was Booth who said it, and 28 dabs with a heart. Wow. Getting hit.
Does that work? We always get the wow. Tasty. That's why we like solventless extractions.
Yeah. Jodie, I was telling him about the store, our new store, and orders keep coming in. Woo! So.
Oh, wow, look at that. Look at that. Wow, someone's buying something right now. Are you guys buying something right
Somebody's
now?
buying something.
Oh, you have the
Call in, go to the
limited
store, buy
edition
something. Help support
Cannabis
our activist
Culture.
Organization. Every dollar you spend goes to something awesome. us.
Pretty much,
Yeah,
it goes
Pod
back
TV
into
right here.
what
it helps
what
us build our
everybody
new
loves.
studio and do the other things we like to do. It helps
Yeah, you
bring
got a new
this
studio
very
coming?
show.
That's going to be
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, that's going to be fun, man.
It'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, we're working on that now next.
A
lot
hidden
of projects
studio.
on the go.
I think you should film the whole thing, building of the Pod TV studio, and you take different portions of it, and at the end of it, you'll make a little movie, and you can have a little montage.
time-lapse style?
The time-lapse style.
That
Yeah.
would be very
well,
cool.
you know what? It just happened.
That's
So
why
now,
they call
now
him Good
you,
Idea
now
Dave.
you guys are going to see the time lapse, and little things that go on. It'd be fun. You know what? It'll be a fun little video. Maybe, what?
The chatters are talking about old Jodie stuff.
Uh-oh.
Centerfolds, things. Nothing too bad. Yeah. Jodie.
The internet.
Internet. You never know.
Oh, well,
These
this is cool.
Young
When
girls in the
I
internet.
was going to mention this. So when I made that post about that car that happened there yesterday on the thing, I got a tweet from ICBC at 418 to contact them.
What? They tweeted you?
They tweeted
watch?
me.
Whoa, that's creepy. ICBC is watching you.
I made a post on my Facebook yesterday about someone making a left-hand turn where it says no left-hand turn, and they're blaming me 100%. And I was like, well, you know what? You could tell 100% is you do the math, right hand, left. It's like...
What they
So I
tweeted
made
you
a,
by
I made
seeing
a, I
your
got a
post,
bunch. I
they're
got about
following you
20
around.
different comments on it, and at 418, ICBC sent me a tweet to voice my concerns to the complaint department to contact them, and I thought that was like the power of social media.
Was that is so bizarre. Hey, Carly.
Of course, they're monitoring
Was that
you.
ICBC, the phone call with the angry voice? Why, and so Carly was calling ICBC, and she had it on to change her address, and she had it on speakerphone, and even the voice on the phone that was the recording, like telling you, we were taking your call, or it was angry. Like the voice was angry sounding, and we both looked at each other. We're like, oh my god! Even the recording at ICBC is aggressive. So
Doing a rate hike.
rate hike. ICBC
Well, you know
is one
what?
of the craziest.
I'm
weird-
sorry, but the amount of accidents that I see out there because of people texting and driving, it's insane. It is. It's
Maybe that's why they're so
you know
angry.
what? Shouldn't smoke weed and drive, but I guarantee it's safer than texting and driving. At least you're paying attention to something.
That's true. You shouldn't be doing anything while you're driving, except for
Drive.
driving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Driving with your feet.
I
But-
don't drive with my feet. I might
After that
try
last
on the way
accident,
home.
I'm not sure.
I don't know.
Yeah. Your hands are out the windows, woo, waving at me. Yeah, I saw your accident in action.
Oh yeah, it was witnessed live.
Yeah.
100%.
I know. Am I gonna have to go to court for that now?
No, I'm not suing them or nothing. It was just the point the guy lied. He said he made a right-hand turn. I'm like, he made a left.
That was
I
a
hit
lie.
him. It wasn't that hard of
I
a
saw
hit.
it.
It wasn't even the big. It was hardly not that much damage. It was the fact that he lied. That's it.
He came creeping up from the other side. Anyways.
Yeah. Anyways, enough about that.
I don't know how we got up on that.
Hey, one
Jodie, do
second.
you want to come sit over here? Come.
I'll share the couch.
Yeah.
Sit in the middle.
Jodie in the middle. Hi, Jodie Emery.
Hi. What I wanted to share with everybody is that we're going to the Karma Cup in Toronto in October. It's October 16th, 17th, 18th. This year, it's a competition of cannabis and concentrates and extracts of all kinds and lotions and all sorts of topicals.
Put on by Sarah Sunday.
And glass as well. There's a glass element to this. And so it's a fantastic sounding event. It's the second time around. That's in October. And we're very grateful to the Karma Cup for flying us out there. Jeremiah
thanks,
will be
Sarah.
there. I'll be there. Mark Emery will be there. So that's for sure. And we're going to document everything and bring it to you guys who can't make it. But for those of you who can, go to thekarmacup.com and check it out. We are now silver level sponsors, so we're doing what we can to help them out, which is not, a huge amount really, but go to the website, you can check it out yourself. But at any rate, it's nice to be able to go out there and see everybody and remain in touch with the community, especially at a pivotal time, and especially when it's right before the federal election. Just a reminder.
Yeah. It's right before that.
Yeah, Harper government, the Harper government banned Elections Canada from telling people to vote. So if you don't talk about it, nobody's going to know. So, Elections Canada, under the Fair Elections Act, which is what it's called, and it's become law. The Fair Elections Act bans Elections Canada from doing any get-out-the-vote messaging. The only thing Elections Canada can say or publicize, really, is to send you mail to your house telling you where to vote on voting day.
People ask about it.
And so they're not allowed to communicate. So if you go to my Twitter or you go to Facebook, you'll see there's a banner just saying remind people to vote. It's messed up. It's crazy. Yeah, and Mrs. Universe, she won. She's a First Nation. Said the very first thing she said is get out and vote. We have to vote out. All of the First Nations across Canada must get out and vote because Harper does not want you to, and everybody is being harmed by Harper.
If everybody actually went and voted, Harper wouldn't be there.
So we must
But nobody
vote.
goes to vote.
And it's really easy. Go open up another tab because I know you're all on your internet. I know you've got a browser window open. So go open another tab and go elections.ca. Very easy, elections.ca. And then you just take 2 minutes, maybe 3 if you're a slow typer, but 2 minutes is all it takes when you log in.
French.
It says, am I registered to vote? Just check.
Francais.
It takes 2 to 3 minutes. Maybe 5 if you're toking at the same time. I don't know. But go look up and
Maybe
make sure
20.
you're registered. And then I'm not sure about this. And again, it's hard to get any info now. But you might be able to vote anytime. Like right now, you could go vote. I think that's the case. I think it is. There's this bizarre section that kind of suggests that. I'll go research it and I'll share that around later. But for right now, the most or the least you can do is go and check to see if you're registered.
If that would be the case, then people would vote. Because if that was the case, then like wherever I am, I would have my computer open and say, hey, you can vote, right? And get them to vote. So
Sign them up. Yeah, well,
Yeah,
that's good. I'm glad.
cool.
So that's the message you were bringing people.
Bring
Vote.
that message
Hell
out,
yeah.
'cause-
Good message, Jodie.
Because here's the problem is that with Harper coming in, if he gets into power again,
We are so
that's
screwed.
bad news. The RCMP already got millions more funding every year for going after grow ops. So,
We
gardens
cannot
are even
take
more in
another
danger.
4 years of Harper.
No.
This
no.
country will cease to exist as we know it.
So
it's getting there already.
it's really important.
I
I
mean, it already
know
is.
the system's broken, but use whatever tools you got, and this is the only way. Overthrow a government or vote. That's the only way to get rid of them. So, go vote.
Yeah, exactly. What are you suggesting, Jodie?
Only voting. Peaceful.
Overgrowing the government.
Peaceful overgrowing of the government.
Yes.
So-
Um,
And on that note, check out Vancouver Seed Bank, bringing you seeds of all
Yeah.
kinds. There's a new delivery of stock. They're in this building on the main floor in the back of the store
Yeah.
where they were before. Is that all a rhyme?
uh-oh. Yeah. that
There you
does.
go. But yeah, they
New
are
York's
there,
calling.
and they're very supportive. So
That's interesting.
New York.
New York.
I'm good. That was really nice. I'm feeling pretty good. If you can't tell.
Oh, sure. I'll take it.
Hit it.
You sure?
Hit it like a baseball in the Blue Jays game. I think they're popular right now. Yeah, they're winning or something. I guess they've been really good lately.
Oh, yeah.
The Blue Jays, I don't know. Mark watches it. No, not so much. But smoke your Jays with the Blue Jays. Canadian
There you go.
team in the big smoke.
Are you ready for the woo tonight, Jodie? Raekwon in town.
Oh, I feel this is a nice opportunity. I like rap and hip hop, but I don't feel like an expert enough. I don't want to, if it sounds good, I like it.
You don't want to
so.
play trivial rap
Yeah,
pursuit?
but what I do want to do is I want to drink a little bit responsibly, and dance because I think we'll have a fun time. Like I don't get out much, and I want to dance, and I'm feeling
Dance,
the
yeah.
need to just because it should be dark, right? And nobody really cares, and everybody's drinking, and
That's true. People
just-
do go out to these clubs to dance.
I hear about
Yeah.
this. I hear about it. It sounds like the young people
Does
get
wallflowers. Me and Johnny, we just stand with our hands in our pockets up against the wall. Like, look at those jerks. A bunch of phonies.
one of the best seat dancers. I was one of the
See
best
you.
seat dancers. Yeah,
I can
Yeah,
see dance pretty
Johnny's
good too.
actually a break dancer. He does the most amazing flares and windmills. This guy, he's popping and locking like a robot. It's crazy. Nobody would even thought it. Just all of a sudden goes in the circle and everybody's like, "Go, Johnny!"
all of
go,
my dancing
Johnny."
moves to Grease Lightning. I had 2 sisters, so you know what? I was forced to dance as a kid, but it paid off in the long run, so I'm okay with it.
He's got the moves.
Nice.
He's
John
got the
Travolta
grooves.
style. Yeah, he's got chills.
This is nice. All right. Well, anyway, it's Pot TV, by the way, is brought to you by Cannabis Culture Store and Lounge. That's what pays for this stuff.
Yeah.
And, Pot TV was the first video website on the internet in Canada, along with CBC Television's website. So Pop TV's been around since 2000, 2001. That's a long time. That's a lot of history. And people who come down and shop here are able to pay for this to happen.
Go shop at our store, CannabisCultureHQ.com.
I'm very proud of Jeremiah's hard work and everyone else who made that Cannabis Culture store website come to life. I mean, we have a very small team. This is about it. And he does kind of all of it. Cannabis Culture in terms of staff, and Brittany Mitchell posts articles. But we don't. Do we have anyone else?
Well, not staff. Wait.
No, so
Megan is doing stuff.
Megan
on
has
Pot
some
TV
photos
now.
and Pot TV, social media.
Yeah, in terms of
but
staff,
in terms
it's pretty
of
small.
everything website, everything Cannabis Culture, everything Pot TV.
Lots of contributors.
Is and you have to deal with them also. So this guy does a lot. And an online store, he thought, I'm tired of it not being there. I'm going to make it happen, and he did. So that's very helpful. And you guys, by supporting us, keep this alive. And you have a low battery.
I just saw that. I know. I think it'll last for a few seconds at least.
Let's hope so.
It's not essential at this
moment.
Okay, cool.
Well, I feel good. I hope you guys feel good.
I do feel good after those dabs.
Yeah.
Nah, thanks, Johnny.
Well, thanks, Johnny B. I'm going to hand the mic over and get
thanks,
out of
Jodie.
over here.
Jodie E.
Yeah,
for
Jodie
coming on the
E.
show.
Yeah, that's
Jodie
right. Jodie E.
Jodie. Well, we'll have fun tonight, I'm sure. Mark at a rap show. I don't know if I've been to many rap shows with Mark. No. We go to hockey games and stuff. Cori's in the house. Looks like she got shot. Oh, a footprint. Somebody stepped on her. Oh, from Cannabis Day. That's hilarious. Oh. I thought it was
Cannabis
like
Day zombie.
I thought you were just like being symbolic of what happened on Cannabis Day. Big boot print. Come over and come show the camera.
You're right there.
Did you want to come on the show? What are you doing? Well, I was going to talk about the zombie walk. Oh, the zombie walk. Yeah, tell people. Okay, why do people do these zombie walks? I do want to ask. Let's talk about this.
Zombie walk?
She'll come on in a sec.
Walk like a zombie.
I'm kind of like.
I thought it was like walk like in the.
They kind of scare me. It's kind of weird. A bunch of bloody people walking down the street and stuff. I see the novelty of it because it scares like people as they walk by and stuff.
You know what?
I don't like what culture. Horror culture.
My favorite saying
the originals.
is people
I like
are
Night of the Living
amazing.
Dead.
That's about it. People are amazing, and they do amazing and strange and cool things. And no matter which way you look at it, it's an amazing little thing that people do.
People are
and
weird.
they all get all together and they all creep out and walk like zombies
zombie
on
dorks.
Zombie Day. All around the world does this happen?
It's like this cosplay stuff.
This is not just
really
a little
taken
thing
off.
that goes on. This is a huge thing, and that's cool.
It is cool. I'm just.
You know, I think I might be a zombie.
Grump.
I'm busy tomorrow, but.
It's kind of cool. I like people dressing up in costumes and doing things. That's fun.
And you know what? I think they should have some pot smoking zombies. You know, I guarantee there'll be zombies smoking weed.
See, the whole thing seems
bong
like
zombie.
There's a couple
bong zombie.
There's a couple like popular culture things to me.
Yeah, bong
You know what's
zombies.
happening with zombies? It's the same thing that happened with the Lord of the Rings. Because really, what happened is one writer writes this book. You know, The Hobbit or The Lord of the Rings. He writes this book, and then a bunch of other writers who are dorks take what he wrote and turn it into a genre of writing, fantasy essentially. This whole like crazy out in the forest type of like Hobbit style fantasy. Now it's a genre. It's its own thing. There's 100 different billion writers of that, and this zombie thing is the same. You know, Romero, the director, comes up with this concept. And then everybody just like copies it essentially, and now it's a genre of movies, zombie movies, based originally on Night of the Living Dead, which is totally rad. Yeah, that movie is so good, and it had a political message. The star of it was a black guy. Actually, it's a fucked up movie. It's actually probably the best horror movie out there besides Evil Dead, which is also amazing. But, anyways, that's my rant on fantasy and zombie movies. Yeah, they're both just copies. You know, the whole genre is just like exploited from one particular work or something. But anyways, I guess they do it in town. So they do this not just here in Vancouver, but they have these zombie walks.
Stop, drop, and dab.
Yeah, shut up and dab. But it'd be funny, I said this before, when those zombies are like, you know, walking by grandma on the street and she's like, what's this coming to? Oh my goodness. Hadn't heard of the zombie walk before. I wonder if some people get scared or like drive there. Didn't somebody like, I think this really happened. Somebody drove his car into one of the zombie walks because he was actually afraid of all these zombies surrounding his car. Yeah. Pretty sure that happened. And then they started smashing on his car. Maybe I just made that up, but I don't think so. Well, if Cori doesn't come, I don't know what she's doing, but maybe she's powdering her nose. But I'm going to get on to Chris Bennett's video soon here.
She's dressing up like a zombie right now.
Oh, that's what she's doing.
Of course she is. She's going to come out like a zombie and talk about the zombie walk.
Oh, shit.
Did that dab really affect you that bad?
I didn't even think of that.
I know, but you know.
Oh, maybe she's doing
maybe
tomorrow?
I don't know.
I'm confused. I don't even know
there
what month it is,
there might be a
let alone what day
zombie
it is.
coming around the corner.
Probably.
Bong zombies.
Bong zombie.
I say bong zombie.
Well, if she doesn't come soon, we'll be watching Chris Bennett by then.
I
came. So Chris,
I'm prepared with joints today.
you're prepared with joints.
No,
You
I'm
pre-rolled? Oh, you
No,
are
no,
not.
no. It's not. Well,
That's because Johnny doesn't smoke joints. Right?
this is some actually tasty stuff that some friends gave me. That was and.
What is that?
Here, smell.
Oh man! Wow, it smells like lemony. What is that?
Nope, she didn't call it like a zombie.
Oh, we thought you were getting zombified.
There's a name to it.
Bit by a zombie?
Okay, so you're coming up. I don't know.
What is that?
It's weed.
What kind? It smelled good.
I think it's lemon haze. Lemon haze.
Made me cough. Hi, Cori. Here, you can. Cori in the middle. It's the buffer zone.
We're
rule.
putting people in the middle
It's like
today.
you can't have guy, girl. You have to have guy, girl, guy.
Yeah, that's the way things work.
How are you, Cori?
I'm good, thanks. Are we sharing a microphone?
Yeah. Yes, I guess so. What?
Well,
so
you know what? Here, you
explain
can have a
the zombie
microphone. I'm
walk.
gonna roll weed.
Okay.
Why? Why do people dress up like zombies and walk through the streets?
Well, you know, I actually, before I came here, saw videos of it and went, oh, that's so awesome, right? And I had to do it, and so I did it for the first time last year. And there's somewhere between 4 to 10 photographers for every one zombie.
Of course. A lot of people taking
there's
photos.
hundreds of photographers. So if there's 200 people in the walk, there's 800 photographers.
Oh wow!
Easy.
So if you want to be a star,
Yeah.
then
You want to protest for Harper? Dress like a Harper. Harper zombies. I think we need some Harper zombies tomorrow with all of that media coverage. Think about it, guys. So dress up like a Harper zombie.
Yeah,
Just saying.
That's a good idea.
Just saying.
So I'm using
Harper
my
zombie.
time as a Cannabis Day zombie. I figured if I passed on July 1st, I'd be pretty ripe by now. So I've got the shoe print on my shirt.
this is the VPD was a little bit harder on
a
you
little
than
harder
some of
than
the other
anybody else.
activists.
Exactly. That's why you didn't,
They
you
didn't
realize that
We
I
forgot
actually
about
got
you, and
towed
your
under.
body showed up in the lake later. Yeah,
So I'll have a footprint on my face too.
in Stanley Park somewhere.
I'm gonna say so. If someone does dress up like a Harper zombie and does a zombie, contact medtainercanada@gmail.com and get some free swag.
Oh, there you go,
there you
giving
go.
away
So
stuff.
I want to see some pictures, and I think it'd be cool. Just post it on the website and on the Facebook page, I should say. And just
Is the zombie
zombies.
walk just in Vancouver? It's other places too,
Well,
right?
yeah, I think they have them other places. I just know that the Vancouver one is happening on tomorrow. It starts at 3 p.m. The walk starts at 4, but you're supposed to assemble around 3. And then they call it either the trample or the shuffle begins at 4.
Because zombies walk
Yes.
slowly.
So I've got my
They
noose around the
shuffle.
neck, right? So I've gone all out.
Do they have a dance, the zombie shuffle? They should.
I don't know.
Sounds
But
like a good
last
song.
year they had a really great after party. I have no idea if they have one planned this year, but last year the after party was really dope.
I
So,
bet. Best
yeah.
brains they ever served.
I'd never seen
Delicious.
zombie burlesque.
Zombie burlesque.
Zombie burlesque
Oh.
last year. That was a
That's
treat.
That's pretty cool. See, I get it. I think it's cool. I like the costumes and stuff.
Well,
it's fun.
it's
like a second Halloween.
I think you
Owe
owe
me
me
a
the
Coke.
Coke. You
Yeah.
owe me the Coke.
It is like a second Halloween.
It
It's a
is.
zombie-specific Halloween.
It is,
So
and I'm
then
trying to,
they
like,
should make it
hijack
so you
it.
can't do zombies on Halloween then.
Yeah.
Shouldn't be allowed to
Yeah.
do zombies on Halloween. Only on Zombie Day.
Well,
I
if
don't
you've
wanna
done
see
a
any
zombie that, if you
zombie
didn't do a zombie, you
Halloween.
could.
Right.
You didn't
okay.
participate, you could, right?
You're right.
But I
Halloween,
think
you
it's
can
a
get
great
away with
idea,
anything.
John and me, to go and hijack it for political reasons and use no, your idea of the
Johnny's
Harper.
going to breakdance.
Come on, are you going?
At the
Come on.
Yeah, he's got a whole routine worked out already for a zombie routine. It's based on Thriller, the Michael
yeah.
Jackson
That's
Thriller.
that's the dance.
That's the one. The clap. They do in that one part and then turn their heads and everything.
Yeah,
I love
it's really
that.
great.
John Landis directed that video.
I
One
love
of my favorite directors. Blues Brothers.
It's great. I think it's a great idea to, find a reason that you want, just find something you want to represent, dress like that, and go. Just make it a zombie.
Zomb it up.
Yes,
Cool.
sir.
Well, thanks,
So
Cori,
short
for
show
bringing
today,
us the info about the zombie walk. I can't speak. Yeah, John, that dab was nice.
What'd you do to him? What did you do to him?
Yeah, a little bit of a short. Well, I don't know how short it'll be because it's 4:44 as we speak. And Chris's video, the interview, is an hour long, actually.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, it's a really good one, though. So I wanted to play. It's an interview with Martin Lee, who is the author of Acid Dreams and other books. He's the guy who started FAIR, the organization for reform in the media, like with Robert McChesney, I believe he started it with. And it's like one of a really good group. He talks a lot about marijuana and other things. I said, yeah, the video is fantastic, and Chris did a great job. So. Yeah, so that's coming up. I'm going to play that. Actually, now that this shut down, I do need to plug this thing in. Hold on a second. You guys keep talking. Oh, you know what else we need to talk about, though, is when is Neil back in court, since you're wearing the Cannabis Day shirt?
Oh, shoot. I did read it. Hold on. Maybe the 26th or so?
Yeah, there you go. Sorry, chords all over.
Jeremiah doesn't think.
Yeah.
You're funny.
I just thought you knew because you always know everything about all these things.
Well, I posted about it, and I did, but I just don't recall because I was posting someone else's information. I wasn't there myself.
Yeah.
That's why it's not cemented in my brain.
At this point, they still haven't submitted enough information to Neil for him to make a case or to do anything.
No, they finally gave him the last bit of discovery, I think, that day in court. How are you supposed to be prepared to respond to the discovery that they give you that day in court? Yes, it's just a real waste of time and waste of taxpayers' money to be moving forward with it.
And, it's September 24th.
Is it the 24th?
It's DeWeed King in the chat.
Hey,
Freddie. The man. Yeah, thanks, man. Appreciate that. Yeah, so,
Echo?
last time, echo? Is there an echo? Oh.
I don't know, it could just be us talking over each other.
It might be. Here, let's see if we can turn any of that down a bit.
Maybe the plug isn't in all the way or something, it says.
Hopefully there's no echo. Sounds like the plug isn't in all the way, they say. Is something going on with our thing over there, Johnny? Rattle some chords? That's okay. Well, we're going to play this video anyways.
That's good.
Yeah.
No, it's just
No. We're online. It just sounds weird. According to Jam in the chat.
So pretty soon you're going to have to make sure that you've registered to vote to be able to vote, right?
Yeah, well, Jodie was just on talking about that on the
good.
website. That's why we had it up there. Yeah.
Well, no, I know that a lot of people aren't aware of that, and I've been posting the link for people to be able to register online. And a lot of people may not be aware of the fact that they have that amount of time they have to wait.
They are getting bad. Something strange going on with the sound. Hold on a sec, guys.
Okay, there we go.
Maybe that's a little bit better.
A little bit better.
That should hopefully be better.
One
yeah,
hopes.
we actually could hear some of that coming through the speaker. It's weird.
So how is the new studio coming along?
Well, it's empty and waiting to be built. But we've spoken with the electrician and who's helping us build it, and we've sort of planned out exactly what we want. And
good.
So yeah, I've been a little busy working on the store and other things, but that's the next project. So now on to the studio.
Excellent.
And, but we need to raise money for that as well. So if you want to help out Pot TV Studios, help us get a new studio, you could always make a donation. Shit, we should make one of those.
You might have
pages.
my first donation. You might have your first donation from me. I want to see the studio really bad.
Yeah, we're working on some pot corporate sponsors, some of our friends in the pot movement, like Johnny B, who already donated to us a good hefty sum, which is really awesome.
I can't
that
be
will
the
help.
First one then.
That will help make the studio. Yeah, and others. Three Happy Cats is in,
Sweet.
and there was somebody else who was in. Who is that now? I know there was somebody else. Oh, Sarah Sunday and the Karma Cup.
Ooh, goody.
They're in too.
Oh, goody.
So yeah.
That's excellent.
And it sounds like we did fix our sound issue.
Good.
But we have our video up anyways. I'm just going to open this up. And
Well, I can't wait to see that interview. It sounds going to be interesting.
yeah, for sure. This is now. I was just going to talk a little bit about Chris Bennett. Of course, for those who don't know who Chris Bennett is the urban shaman. He owns a store in the store downstairs in Cannabis Culture that sells sacred herbs.
It's like a dream within a dream.
Books and all kinds of other stuff. Really cool stuff down there. And he is an urban shaman. Chris has written 3 books about religion and the use of marijuana and other drugs as a sacrament, which is like, you know, a method of talking to God basically through, you know, getting high essentially. And he's got some amazing work that he's done. And he's worked with other people like Carl Ruck and others to kind of connect the etymology of the word cannabosum with cannabis and virtually proving that the Bible mentions cannabis and that Jesus was cruising around anointing people. The Christos, the Christ, was anointing people with holy cannabis oil because cannabosum is cannabis.
I'm trying to think of that word.
So yeah, Chris is a pretty amazing guy. He's done some groundbreaking work, actually like changing the sort of landscape of what we understand about cannabis in the process.
Definitely. There's another word instead of psychedelics. There's another word, and it basically
entheogen.
That's it, entheogens. That is the most amazing word, and it's just so like it's not on the radar of a lot of people, and it specifically means to reach a higher consciousness or to break the barrier into the unknown with that substance.
Yeah.
So it's pretty amazing.
David Melmo Levine coined the term epiphanic the other day. An epiphanic. Because they have a euphoric, but he likes the epiphanic. It gives you an epiphany, an epiphanic. But yes, an entheogen, definitely something that, you know, you use a substance to connect with the forces beyond. And these mushrooms and acid and MDMA and all these things you can actually use to, like, seemingly connect with some inner source of who knows what the hell it is, man. I don't know what it is, but whatever it is, it feels good and it feels right. And it actually is like, you know, there's people who've been writing about this for thousands of years that use these, you know, substances to connect with these forces to literally download information about the universe to your brain.
Yes.
That's the way they describe it. It's this unconscious, automatic happening that this information or knowing, knowledge, gnosis, knowledge, the way the Greeks used to talk about it, goes right into your brain like an antenna from some source beyond. So yeah, people have been doing it for thousands of years. That's what shamanism and that stuff is all about. And that's what, you know, there's some modern equivalents. I think our modern system of medicine and stuff kind of lacks an understanding of these things. Now they call them placebos. Just enough to ramble on. So, but that's Chris Bennett. And so, Chris has been on the show many times. We played a lot of his videos. Whenever he has a new video, I always like to play it. So
That tastes so freaking good. That was like a piece of lemon candy.
Yeah, like lemon ice. Mm-hmm.
Oh, that was delicious.
Oh, that's a different thing we were smoking.
That's amazing.
Everything's like lemon to me today. There you go.
The taste was much, much more intense than that.
What is that? Plugging into the mothership. Jam said plugging into the mothership. And Dab says he likes that term. Yeah. The endocannabinoid system.
Well, you know, I'm also... Another place that I frequent and do a lot of volunteering is Free Geek, and they have a lot of old computers. So I'm just wondering if there might be any, like, you know, technology zombies that might crawl out of Free Geek and go to the zombie walk. I don't know.
Oh, probably. There, I'm sure. Like Borg style?
Yeah, that'd be great.
You could do the,
well,
like...
I was thinking like a future zombie would look like that, right?
Borg zombie.
Yeah. Yes.
The cutest of Borg.
Is my geek showing?
Cool. Well... Okay, all right. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah,
and thank you, Jodie, for coming
me.
on. Thank you, Johnny, for coming on, and
Thanks
others.
for the dabs, Johnny.
I can't remember if there was somebody else, but I'm super dabbed out already.
Everybody looks pretty chilled.
I want to play the Chris video here. Jodie's peacing out.
Jodie says peace.
And now I'm playing this video through this old studio system, so it should just like automatically queue up. And so we don't need to. I won't actually see you guys after this. We'll see you guys on the next show next Friday. You can watch all kinds of shows on Pot TV all week long from Monday to Sunday. Tune in to pot.tv for not only shows from here, but from Vapor Central. Right now, Vapor Central is being renovated, though.
They'll be back.
Yeah,
they're back on the 4th or something?
Oh, that's today.
Today. Oh, yeah, I think they're back today.
So, wow, I can't wait to see how the new room looks and stuff.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, they sent all
we've been
their
missing
old
their
stuff
shows.
to Where'd they send all their old stuff? To another vapor lounge.
Oh, they did?
They did.
I guess I haven't been paying attention. No. But
I can't wait to see Redbeard on Saturday.
Yes, of course. Don't forget to watch Redbeard tomorrow.
If you're
4
not at the
p.m.
zombie walk.
If you're not zombified, tune in for the Redbeard show. And if you are zombified, tune in later for the repeat
replay.
episode on pot.tv, where you can find all our episodes. We don't. We probably should.
Oh, that would be
I know.
I was going to say,
Bubble Man.
that's what I was going to mention, is Chris Bennett was talking last Hash Church, and there was some great history there is popping up on Hash Church, of course, every week. So you definitely have to log into that. It's every Sunday morning from 9 a.m. until we stop talking.
I think we can embed it. We should be able to embed the...
Well, no, like I said, Chris has been on there. Everybody just logs in. I'm pretty sure you can do something with it.
Actually, be a part of it.
Yeah, everything's interactive, very much.
Yeah.
You can probably send Mark a message and say, I'd like to come on to Hash Church, and he would gladly love you to be on Hash Church because
doesn't
we need
YouTube-
more girls
he does
on
it through
there.
YouTube.
Sundays
I
are
just
day
figured there's a
off.
way
So,
do all that stuff.
So there you go. You definitely well, make that contact. There you go. So if you're watching, you're getting a note, Mark.
All right. Okay. Well, I'm going to play the video. So peace, Pod TV. Love ya. We'll see you soon. Enjoy.
Oh my goodness.
Well, why? Of course I got to join.
There's a natural affinity between the altered state induced by cannabis, the altered state of consciousness, and the creative attributes of the human mind. Numerous artists have embraced cannabis as a creative catalyst. Writers in particular have benefited from the associational fluidity that cannabis engenders, how it loosens the power of analogy and unleashes the spoken word. And before the written word, of course, is the spoken word. Before literature, there's song. It turns out that in areas of the brain that are very active during a young child's life, when language acquisition is actually really happening around 2 years old, it's heavily concentrated with cannabinoid receptors, and they're firing at a greater pace at that point than ever before. So there's a link between language acquisition and cannabinoid receptor signaling. Cannabinoid receptors, of course, are the receptors in the human brain and body that respond pharmacologically to compounds in cannabis. Many writers have benefited from the associational fluidity that cannabis engenders, its ability to unleash the spoken word, loosen the powers of analogy. Before the written word, there is the spoken word. Before literature, there is song. And there's a great many cultural reference points for cannabis as a speech-inducing agent in many different cultures, even the United States. The CIA's predecessor during World War II, the Office of Strategic Services, referred to cannabis as a speech-inducing agent, as a truth serum, get people to spill the beans, enemy spies, and so forth. But many, long before that, in different cultures, such as Central American Indian cultures, actually referred to cannabis, which they used in a ceremonial context, as the herb which makes one speak. India, ancient India, Tibet as well, referred to cannabis as an herb that impels the flow of words. So there's a natural affinity for literature there. And there's a biological basis for this. Cannabis dilates blood vessels, including blood vessels in the brain. The more the brain's blood vessels are dilated, the more blood will flow through the veins, the more oxygen that is in the brain, the more oxygen, the more thoughts, rush of thoughts. So there's a biological basis for that experience that many people involved in literature claim. Well, when you think about it, one of the very first novels ever written by Francois Rabelais, Gargantua and Pantagruel, when Pantagruel was hemp. He didn't identify it by name that way, but it was an allegory about the hemp plant, or much of that early novel. and he was a satirist. And literature is, again, relatively recent phenomenon. Before literature, there was the spoken word, there was spoken poems and song. But ever since the 1500s, when the first novel started to be written, cannabis was always part of that. And in the French tradition in particular, it's very pronounced. In the 19th century, we have the Hashish Eaters Club that emerged in the 1840s. It was actually stimulated by, in the early 1800s, a French doctor, Dr. Jodie de Tours, visited Egypt, which was a French colony at the time, as much of North Africa was. It was in Napoleon's time, and it was an expansive French empire. When Moreau de Tours went to Egypt, he was like stunned by the amount of hashish consumption in the local population. But he perceived that it actually had a positive effect overall, because he didn't see the same kind of diseases as a physician now in Egyptian society as he was sitting in France. And he surmised that it probably had something to do with the fact that in Egypt, hashish was the recreant of choice, rather than alcohol, which has always been frowned upon in the Muslim religion. But not so for hashish. It's been an ambiguous relationship. But he brought some hashish back with him to France. And he was interested in the idea that if you consume hash, and they were generally eating it rather than smoking it, it could make a normal person temporarily crazy, kind of a hashish insanity, as it were. And therefore, that this model psychosis, and that's where the concept originated with Moreau de Tours, that was later became very much part of the discussion, the scientific or the politicized science discussion around LSD in the 1960s. This idea that a drug can will cause a normal person to go crazy. Reefer Madness later sort of picks up on this theme. But so he looked at that and he said that, this could be a very useful tool, hashish. He took it himself, because if a doctor takes it, he'd better understand how a person with mental illness was functioning. And he thought that was a good thing. But where his impact was most keenly felt was not in the scientific world, but in the world of literature, because he instigated this club that would meet every month in Paris, starting in the 1840s, the Hashish Eaters Club, the club that's hashish. And the most famous writers, the most influential literary figures in France were part of this. Victor Hugo wrote Hunchback of Notre Dame, Balzac, Flaubert, Charles Baudelaire, Alexandre Dumas, he wrote The Count of Monte Cristo and The Three Musketeers. The most popular novelist of his day. These were the preeminent French men of letters. Of course, then later there's Arthur Rimbaud and stuff, but that's after the Hashish Eaters Club already passed. But nonetheless, this sort of marked a point in French literary history. It was a moment in which that the relationship between literature and hashish would crystallize, that relationship in the Hashish Eaters Club. And sometimes, actually, in the literature itself, hashish figured as a part of the plot, or certainly in The Count of Monte Cristo, where Sinbad the sailor takes hashish and proclaims it really speaking about it, these wondrous tones. So it was, and again, these were the respected writers, the most popular writers, and they were portraying hashish as sort of a ticket to this, mystical beyond, within, something very exciting, and how could it not affect how people looked at it? It didn't have the stigma that hashish would later acquire in France and other countries the following century. Why does it have a stigma today in France? Because who was that? It's the Muslim kids from North Africa that were doing it in the ghettos of France. It was their way of coping, That's what they had. And it became associated, just like it was pegged with the blacks and Latinos in the United States in the run-up to Prohibition, the same kind of racist conjunction. But it not just in the French tradition, but you have also in the English tradition, a kind of a Hashish Eaters Club that emerged, the Rhymers Club, later in the century, and it was associated with the Order of the Golden Dawn, which was an occult group. And among its notable members, even though I guess it's supposed to be a secret society, it was no secret the fact that William Butler Yeats, the great Irish poet, the future Nobel laureate, was part of the Rhymers Club and part of the Order of the Golden Dawn, also Aleister Crowley and so forth. Looking at the literary connection, the figure of William Butler Yeats is very significant, But here is a Nobel laureate, a great Irish poet and playwright, who was part of the Rhymers Club, who partook of both hashish and peyote. He didn't like peyote all that much, but he seemed to like hashish. And he was part of a circle in late 19th century Paris that was involved with the Theosophical movement. Madame Blavatsky, she had launched that in New York. And she had a cult following, as it were, literally, in Paris. And William Butler Yeats was a part of that. And there was a group of people around a doctor, Dr. Louis Alphonse Cagnier. He had a circle around him of devotees, if you will, not necessarily toward him, but toward these monster doses of hashish that they were consuming, way beyond what they would consume at the Hashish Eaters Club in Paris in the 1840s. And there, when they would eat the green paste, the poets and the writers associated with the Hashish Eaters Club, they would get really buzzed an hour later or so after eating a sumptuous meal at this nice hotel, and they'd have an uproarious time. Well, Caganet's circle was also taking hashish, but it was like 10 times the amount. And I mean, the Hashish Eaters Club, they were getting blitzed on what they were taking. So what these guys were doing in the 1890s, and Yeats and these, there was, and with the express purpose of stimulating occult insight, seducing the muse, was all, the literary and the occult were very much overlapping in this phenomenon. Obviously not all men and women of letters were into the occult, but there was a very interesting segment where both overlapped. And then the key personage, in my mind, is Yeats, given his stature in the world of letters. But certainly there were many British writers who were involved with cannabis in one way or another. Lewis Carroll, the cat, Alice in Wonderland, the hookah-smoking caterpillar. There are several others. Jack London wrote about his experience with hashish. He's an American writer. Oscar Wilde, on the other side of that Atlantic. Robert Louis Stevenson, amazing stuff he wrote, a short story in which he describes his encounter with this, and he's on a ship, and this quirky guy who has this vial of golden oil that cures all maladies. And he's talking about what we now know of today, the cannabis concentrate oil. It cures, it can treat tumors, it does all these amazing things, stops epilepsy dead in its track. And here, Robert Louis Stevenson having a fictitious conversation with a mysterious man on a ship in the 1890s. The guy who wrote, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, very much of a, people think of it as a cocaine thing going on in England at the time, for sure. But cannabis was very influential in the literature, and certainly Robert Louis Stevenson, a bohemian, of his day, a hippie before his time, very much into a very significant character in this regard. The winter-spring edition, 2013 of O'Shaughnessy's, a Journal of Cannabis and Clinical Practice, published and edited by Fred Gardner, and I'm an associate editor of that project. This is a little piece called The Hipper Mr. Jones. In The Amateur Emigrant, Robert Louis Stevenson writes about Mr. Jones, an excellent friend he met on the passage from Glasgow to New York. And he quotes now from The Amateur Emigrant. He was from Wales and had been most of his life a blacksmith, strong and skillful in his trade. His was the nature that looks forward and goes on from one year to another and through all the extremities of fortune undismayed. And if the sky were to fall tomorrow, I should look to see Jones the day following, perched on a stepladder and getting things to rights. He was always hovering around inventions like a bee of a flower, and lived in a dream of patents. He had with him a patent medicine, for instance, the composition of which he had bought years ago for $5 from an American peddler, and sold the other day for £100, I think it was, to an English apothecary. It was called golden oil, cured all maladies without exception, and I am bound to say that I partook of it myself with good results. It is the character of the man that he was not only perpetually dosing himself with golden oil, but where there was a head aching or a finger cut, there would be Mr. Jones with his bowel. Now, Stevenson made the acquaintance of Mr. Jones in 1879, a period when American patent medicines were quite likely to contain cannabis and or opium. The fact that an English druggist was willing to lay out £100 for formula suggests that Mr. Jones' golden oil was effective and potent. There's no determining its contents now, but what ingredients besides cannabis and perhaps opium could have had such healing effects? Stevenson, an instinctive bohemian, had smoked plenty of hashish on an earlier trip to France. He came from Edinburgh, Scotland, where William Brooke O'Shaughnessy went to medical school, and where seeds that William B. O'Shaughnessy sent from India, the gunja seeds, were grown out for possible medical use, and they actually made some of the first cannabis tinctures with that way. And then hashish was referred to by Nietzsche in a very interesting way. He said if one is depressed, one has to take some hashish. That's a paraphrase of what he said. But I don't know if he was depressed. I mean, he had syphilis. He went crazy. I don't know whether he himself took hashish, but he said the one reference in Nietzsche was very positive. And there's other, in the Germanic tradition, there's a lot of interesting writers involved with hashish or mescaline. There was an early mescaline circle in Europe in the 1930s. Hermann Hesse was involved in that. Ernst Junger. I think Dr. Albert Hoffman was aware of that when he discovered LSD in the 1940s. That was already going on in Europe now for 10 years earlier, 20 years earlier. Long before Huxley wrote about it so brilliantly, so beautifully. And very much the psychedelic and the cannabis world overlap very much in the 1960s, in some ways less so beforehand. But there are forerunners of that. You look at the surrealist poet. The 1920s are a very interesting period in Europe in terms of hashish and the literary scene, the artistic scene. You have Walter Benjamin in Germany writing about hashish in brilliant prose. And then you have the surrealists, Robert Dino, Jean Cocteau, who are getting buzzed on hash and listening to Louis Armstrong play, Chop Suey Blues or whatever it was. And because you had the phonograph invented at this time, so they could hear jazz, and they were getting stoned. The circle of writers around Andre Breton and so forth, they're very much interested in dreams and provoking altered states of consciousness from whence the surrealist inspiration would emerge. So they're very, very much bound up on these circles. And it was not only writers, of course, because the surrealist movement was multi-tiered artistic phenomenon. You had musicians, Eric Satie, and painters, Dali, and so on, and many nationalities. And it had a necessity. Well, it was very much about. It was a very politicized and turbulent era. This was the 1920s. Fascism was rising in Europe. You had the futurists in Italy were in kind of a problematic relationship of what became fascism, but also were interested in drugs and mescaline. Julius Evola, who was considered like the Herbert Marcuse of the fascist movements in Italy after World War II, really, but he was involved with the mescaline circle. And so you had very interesting kind of radical politics on both sides of the spectrum, if you will, if you look at it linearly, which probably isn't the best way to look at it. But the drugs, I think, were always, and cannabis in particular, were always part of a, if not marginalized, a sort of more radical perspective, a more critical of mainstream. Ever since the Romantic movement in the early 1800s, drugs seem to play this role in European society. And the ironic thing is the drugs come into the colonizing societies from the colonies, always from Africa on the slave ships, from the Arabs under French domination into France. There's an interesting power dynamic there that goes on. It's almost like subversive, in some unconscious, brilliant way. In the United States, there wasn't a lot of folks involved with hashish in the 1840s, 1850s. It comes over as a patent medicine. Really in the 1850s it starts in the U.S. and increasingly become incorporated in that way. But there was it kind of trickled out and was kind of a recreational cannabis scene, if you will, that was recognized and written about, not extensively, but mentioned in Scientific American, it might have been, early writing. It's on the record that there was it wasn't just a matter of medicine. People were doing it for self-exploration, for fun, and it wasn't seen as, it wasn't looked down upon. We're talking about the 1800s. So it was a very libertarian time, if you will, in terms of pharmaceutical access in the United States. Assuming you were white or had some kind of privilege, anyway, you can go in a drugstore and get these things. and use it themselves. But then you also had literary folks in America who were always interested. The first, of course, is Fitzhugh Ludlow writing the Hashish Year. And that's the kind of prototypical, in some ways the preeminent 19th century American literary statement about cannabis. He was part of a cadre of literary bohemians that included the likes of Walt Whitman and Louisa May Alcott, who wrote about the cannabis-infused bonbons that the women of society ate. And of course, she's the author of Little Women, one of the preeminent women writers in American history, certainly in the 19th century. And she's writing about hashish. Jack London, I mentioned him, but he wrote an essay about his experience. And again, for the most part, people weren't smoking it, they were ingesting it. It was part of an oral tradition. That was the main relationship that American society had, either through medicine as a tincture or as a literary or self-experiment. Hashish would be consumed, it would be imbibed, it wouldn't be smoked. Maybe very end of the century, in the 1800s, people started picking up on that part of it. And then in the 20th century, the experience is more as a smoke substance, I think, because Mexican Americans who brought it with them during the Mexican Revolution, that was their religion, and that gets passed along in American society. It always stayed marginalized. Pascal Beverly Randolph was a very interesting character, the head of the first Rosicrucian Society, apparently underground secret society in the United States. It's a long connection to occult mythology, and I don't mean by mythology false story, but a kind of a mythos. The order of Rosy Crucifixion, it's linked to in kind of right-wing paranoid minds and ultra-Catholic nut minds with Freemasonry and anti-papal plots and so forth and so on. And, so he's involved with secret societies, and he's a very, very important figure in what could be called like the American spiritualism moment. It was not a Judeo-Christian thing. It was a kind of and just by the fact that you had the spiritualist phenomena seen that later Madame Blavatsky from Russia, she becomes really the preeminent figure in that phenomenon. Randolph was in some ways before her, and he died the year took his own life, the year she formed the Theosophical Society in New York. I think that's 1856, if I'm not mistaken, but it was in the mid-1850s. So it's an outsider phenomenon, American spiritualism. It's a semi-underground phenomenon. It's outside of the Judeo-Christian mainstream. It's inherently critical of it, the way it positions itself. Hashish was of great interest in the American spiritualist scene, in large part because of Pascal Beverly Randolph, who was a mulatto, intellectual, kind of an amateur bathtub chemist who would mix up patent medicines, which he sold on a speaker circuit. There was a time people would go around and say, hey, you buy your thing, and someone would stagger up on crutches, usually faking it, throw away the crutch and went up, trim the thing. This is the kind of stuff that Beverly, I'm not saying he was a huckster in that way, but what he purported to, what he was doing was selling a hashish-infused tincture that he claimed to have a unique formula for helping people with their sexual problems. He made a bunch of money this way. Apparently he traveled a lot. He went to Europe. That's where he first came in contact with the medicine of immortality, as the hashish, the paste, the green paste was called in North Africa. The Damask was the name of it, and it meant medicine of immortality. In his travels, Pascal Beverly Randolph encountered hashish, and I think it was in France. I don't know if he went to North Africa actually, but certainly it was when he was traveling as part of the same trip that he encountered hashish-infused pastries, and he wrote about it in spectacular ways. Again, eating it, which has a more powerful effect, almost like LSD or magic mushrooms, more so than you're smoking a bowl generally. So people who were using it in this context in the 19th century were really getting high. Pascal Beverly Randolph, in some ways, he bequeathed hashish to the world of American spiritualism, which was dominated later in the 19th centuries by Madame Blavatsky. And she herself is purported, at least by some accounts, I think they kind of want to whitewash the reputation of her in the whoever holds the keys to the Theosophical Society now, they don't particularly like to go into this part of her mesmeric trances. Well, how did she get there? You know, she was getting into the hashish, and she would go, you know, she was quite prolific, right? These almost inscrutable, you know, volumes, The Secret Doctrine, and you know, another one all about, you know, Atlantis under the ocean, and the big age before that. The secret, you know, it was wild stuff. But definitely, hashish was an important part of her writing mechanism, and it was because she identified with this so strongly, and it was so blunt in her positive assessments of the hashish experience. It causes the Theosophical Society today, such as it is, it's not a lot going on there necessarily, but they kind of want to whitewash that part of her history, so they don't like to emphasize that part of it. Of course, in Germany, you had Walter Benjamin, a different kind of writer, brilliant social critic, literary critic. Kind of, he's been described as a Marxist mystic or mystic Marxist. I don't know what comes first, but his writing in the German language about hashish was quite amazing. And there's an interesting story there. He's in the 1920s. He's Jewish. The Nazis are taking over. He has to flee. He eventually commits suicide to avoid being captured by the Gestapo in France. But meanwhile, the doctor, the social psychologist, the Jewish doctor that gave him the hashish as part of an experiment in Germany, social psychology was associated with an effort to help working class drug addicts, you know, soldiers, ex-soldiers who were down, and it was a phenomenon in the Weimar Republic. There was a lot of drug issues, and so these social psychiatrists were looking at hashish as a curative. And that's the context in which Benjamin experimented with it in brilliant writing. But the Jewish social psychiatrist, the doctor in Weimar, Germany, who turned Benjamin onto hashish, Fritz Frankl, he had to flee, of course, when the Nazis came to power as well. He fled to Mexico, where he fell in with the circle of turned-on revolutionaries, including, well, he was tight with Leon Trotsky, who I don't know if he was getting high, but certainly Diego Rivera and Frida Kahlo were, and they were all part of a very interesting left-wing revolutionary circle in Mexico. It was very friendly to hashish, but again, I don't know if Trotsky had anything to do with it. So in all these different countries in Europe, the literary traditions were very bound up with cannabis. Of course, later in the United States, you have the Beats, Jack Kerouac, Allen Ginsberg, William Burroughs, who celebrated pot smoking, tea smoking in their literature. Burroughs attributed many of the scenes in Naked Lunch to his use of cannabis as a creative stimulus. Ginsberg wrote parts of How under the influence of hashish, or weed, probably more likely than hashish. Kerouac, I mean, he was excessive with all drugs. He smoked 16 joints a day in Mexico. He's notorious, you know. So drugs are very important part of the beat scene, but the beats, of course, are very important of our history because they, in some ways, are the transition belt between a more marginalized cultural relationship with cannabis. In the jazz scene, it's an African-American scene, Latino scene, but it's not a mainstream white scene. And you had this is segregated America. And it was the beats that really took the jazz cats urban and brought it into mainstream America. I mean, the key transmission belt in that regard. And of course, Allen Ginsberg was, in some ways, the prototype pot activist. And, pot is fun. And the first public anti-marijuana demonstration, at least on the East Coast, was the first. And that picture resounded around the world in the 60s. Pot is a reality kick, pot is fun. So he wasn't just someone who wrote poems about marijuana, LSD, mescaline, and so forth, but influenced so many people. I remember speaking to Michael Aldrich, a very eminent cannabis scholar. He said the first time he saw the word marijuana in print was in Ginsberg's poetry. It was that kind of thing. So it's not that just that they wrote about it, they used it to write, but they became advocates, and that's a very important part of the story too. Hashish has played a very interesting role in the Islamic world, the Muslim world. The Ottoman Empire was the empire for a long time, in 1300s and for several hundred years. But the relationship with marijuana was kind of mixed, because sometimes it would be everything was cool and relaxed, and other times you get some crazy sheik or amir, running the show for 12 years and bans it. but never did they ever ban the medicinal use of cannabis. It was always recognized in the Muslim world, even if sometimes politically and legally it was going back and forth. And it comes when you follow the trajectory of cannabis from its presumed origins in the Kush, the southern Himalayan foothills, and just all around, not just the southern, but the Himalayan foothills on both sides, and spreads from there northward and southward. But southward it goes into India, northward China. In both countries it has a very important medicinal role in the cultures, a religious role, ceremonial role, more so than literature, because literature wasn't really being written. The first pharmacopoeia from Emperor Shen Nung, I think 2700 BC. He's the emperor that bequeathed tea. He taught humanity about how to drink tea, or whatever, that you should drink tea. What an amazing thing. Well, it was only years later, hundreds of years later, that they compiled the pharmacopoeia that had been assembled in his time under his supervision, and cannabis was considered one of the half-dozen elixirs of immortality. And it was said to be a very unusual medicinal hemp ma. It was very unusual as a medicinal herb because it had both strong yin and yang energies. And so now, thousands of years later, what do scientists discover? That cannabis, it's a dialectical plant. It has compounds with opposite effects. There's THC, psychoactive, CBD, non-psychoactive. They mix in interesting ways. They make each other more therapeutic in certain ways, yet they have opposite effects in other ways. So there it is, yin and yang energies. And so much of modern science today, which is going, as amazing breakthroughs are going on in terms of understanding the brain, as a result, ultimately, of research that began as research into how cannabis affected the brain. But the science very much confirms the wisdom of the ancients. That's what I find. And so in China, you had the first mention, the first pharmacopoeia ever written, the first assemblage as a medical text mentions cannabis as a very important medicine. And in India, much the same, but it was also more pronounced as in a religious context, and just a ceremonial, everyday context. And it was more psychoactive, it was more southern. China, it kind of went from there in the hemp direction into northern Europe, into Russia and so forth. It migrated that way. But from the south, it goes from India through Persia and into the Muslim world. And again, it has this ambiguous relationship. But and then from the Muslim world, it goes in part into, because it became colonized ultimately by France, much of the North Africa, the hashish goes into Europe, and it also goes into Africa. And from Africa, seeds on the slave ships come to the United States. So what comes over in Africa? It's an oral tradition. It's a musical tradition. It's jazz. It's the rhythms of jazz that come over on the slave ships with the cannabis seeds, and from the same exact cultures that jazz historians trace to the rituals of and the percussive beats and the fire burning and the cannabis being placed on the fires. People, this is part of the tradition where jazz ultimately comes from. So you could talk. I see that as a kind of literature, but it's a rhythmic literature. It's a spoken word. It's scatting. It's very primal, and there's no coincidence that the slaves the people that were brought over and made into slaves, when they brought these seeds with them, they brought this whole they brought a cultural context with them too, and it was the context of what become jazz and blues. And I learned recently that there were slave ships going to Mexico, not just initially it was going to Brazil, what became Brazil, and in South America, and of course into North America as well. But Mexico, apparently, they brought the seeds on the slave ships, and that's how cannabis first came to Mexico, which is kind of a new wrinkle for me. But yeah, it's very interesting. Why does cannabis become illegal? It was politically opportune. It was bureaucratic self-interest at play. It was self-preservation. Also racism. I think those are the two main factors. I mean, there's speculation that DuPont wanted to suppress hemp. Hearst wanted to monopolize the newspaper, paper access because he had a lot of forests and so on. And there may, in fact, exactly been what's going on. You had DuPont seeing a potential competitor to its synthetic chemicals and wanted to squash it. The problem is with that, there's no evidence. it's an interesting speculation, and again, perhaps it's right on the money, perhaps it's a bullseye. But we know for sure there was a racist campaign involved, that cannabis was associated with marginalized ethnic groups, and in an overtly racist way, with sexual tinge, fears, being played upon them. Black men and white women there would be sexual contact with them, induced by cannabis use. And this was and it's a threat to women, threat to children, the assassin of youth. This is a theme that keeps being played out in American culture, even though the drug warriors are losing at this point. They still play that one incessantly. So why? I think to me that is sufficient to explain what happened. That Harry Anslinger was facing the potential elimination of his entire new department, the Federal Bureau of Narcotics, instituted in the early 1930s after alcohol prohibition ended. They spin off, and some of the prohibition officers are incorporated into this new organization, the Federal Bureau of Narcotics. It's the Depression. There's budget cutbacks. They're looking at this thing as to do nothing. It's basically a bullshit agency. Cut it. Well, he has to come up with a reason. So he convinces Congress there's this terrible threat, this reefer man, this the assassin of youth, raping white women, black. This was what was going on, and the culture was being pushed out by both the government and the media through the Hearst papers, because he had his own reasons to go after marijuana. He was an anti-Mexican bigot. This was the Mexican-American's drug of choice, recreant of choice, so forth and so on. There were other things going on as well. But to me, that's enough to explain why things played out. In Congress, you got a bunch of idiots there, and what's going on. Roosevelt, he's got other things on his mind, and a little heavier right now. There's fascism coming up in Europe, and there's this fascist pig, Harry Anslinger, doing the same thing that Hitler's doing, playing really literally the same. That's what the drug war propaganda, there's a direct correspondence. Time-wise, it's happening at the same time, and in terms of the way they scapegoat the other in racist tones. In this case, it's the marijuana smoker, the deviant drug user, and in Germany, they had a word for it, the drug war to keep the race clean. Exactly. It's a striking correspondence, and it should be pointed out. The drug war is very much a fascist kind of phenomenon. That's its roots, and it's persisted in American society. Even when the myths get discredited, they seem to, it's like a vampiric thing. You can't kill them. You need ultra garlic or kryptonite. And they just keep going on. They keep being reborn as reefer madness light. Yeah, now it still causes schizophrenia. All the stuff for which there's no science for it, but they keep churning it out. The cannabis in music is a powerful, strong leitmotif and smoke signals. I do a lot on music there. All kinds of music. Cannabis is so central to it. When you think about jazz, of course, Louis Armstrong, notorious. The whole Viper scene, the cannabis was celebrated in the lyrics, by many jazz musicians, and it certainly influenced this kind of bouncy rhythm that jazz acquired in the Viper music genre. This specific subgenre of jazz was very significant because Louis Armstrong was so central a figure as a Viper, not just as a jazz musician. It lent a kind of cultural, it gave it some street cred, but more than street cred, because Louis Armstrong was planetary cred. He was huge. He was the first black superstar. His music is listened to every day all over the world, and that he was so intimately associated with cannabis was significant in and of itself. And many other jazz musicians, certainly, but not just jazz. You look at every genre of popular music today, and you see, cannabis is central to the experience. Country music, Willie Nelson, maybe we say more. He was said, he's credited cannabis with saving his life, as a harm reduction thing. He started smoking more, and he's drinking less, and finally he wasn't drinking at all, got off cigarettes, and he's very, very open about that. There's no doubt about that. Rock and roll, come on, the Beatles, getting turned on by Bob Dylan, as part of the folk scene in the late 50s, and it was sort of mixed in with the civil rights movement and so forth, the kind of new left where it emerged from culturally, very much influenced by cannabis, again, because the beats are a part of that. Dylan turning on the Beatles, that's a signature moment in the 1960s, the first time the Beatles smoked pot at a hotel in New York City. It was August 28th, 1964, exactly 1 year after Bob Dylan played at the big March on Washington, where Martin Luther King gave his I Have a Dream speech. Dylan played his, what was the Peter, Paul, and Mary song? The Answer My for Blowing in the Wind. Dylan sang Blowing in the Wind at that festival, and Dylan was a pot smoker, and he was part of a pot smoking scene. He was influenced by reading Ginsberg and the Beats. He says so explicitly. And the Beatles, I mean, you know, they're the biggest rock and roll band in the world, but it wasn't just the Beatles. Cannabis was everywhere in the rock scene in the 60s. And, you know, I mean, take another hit of Don't Bogart That What, My Friend. I mean, you go on and on, cite examples, you know. But then the Beatles, I'd Love to Turn You On. I mean, this is the Beatles telling, this is the greatest rock album ever, you know. Sgt. Pepper's, and they're singing I'd Love to Turn You On. And it wasn't just about LSD, it was, the Beatles were part of a social movement, countercultural movement, anti-war movement in Great Britain that very much was so infused with cannabis and psychedelics, just as it was in the United States. What other kind of reggae? I mean, come on. Bob Marley, it's marijuana music. Hip hop. Snoop Dogg, you know, again, cannabis, very, very prominent in the whole hip hop scene. The whole, you could say that the cannabis renaissance after the reefer sadness in the 1980s, the reefer renaissance in the 1990s, in part, you know, catalyzed by Jack Herrera in his book about hemp and its unified field theory of hemp. But in the 1990s, hip hop and the whole cannabis scene merging together in such a powerful way. And to me, that's where the drug war is lost. On that, that's a big turning point in a way. Just when there was the worst with Reagan at the very end there, Jack's with his book preaching next to the Washington Monument, high on acid with his his videotape loop of Victory Through Hemp playing over and over again while he's preaching like a madman, you know, next to this Smithsonian. During the last year of Reagan presidency, to me, that's the turning point, right there. You know, it's the lowest, but it's where it starts to swing back. Yeah, music's part of it. And the medical marijuana scene really takes off after that. Of course, that's the driving force in the 90s and a lot of it. And medical marijuana and hip-hop on the cultural side, to me, they're happening together. And it means we won, right? That was like the DMB info of the culture war, drug war, in my opinion, where that side lost, and now slowly the politics is catching up. It always takes the politics to catch up, long after the culture war. You know, cannabis has a rich history as a medicine all over the world, many different cultures, including the United States. As of the second half of the 19th century, really, is when cannabis tinctures take hold in the culture and become possibly the most widely used medicine. Medicines in the culture have cannabis as one of perhaps its main ingredient, or mixed with opium or cocoa or whatever. It could be mixed with different things. But cannabis was a dominant component of American medicine, the patent medicine era in the late 19th century. It falls into, I wouldn't say disrepute, but it begins to fade because of two factors, even before Prohibition, which eliminated medicinal uses of cannabis. And that's one of the great, great tragedies of Prohibition that's implemented in 1937. But before that, you had the invention of the syringe, but you can't inject oil-based compounds with a syringe. And cannabinoids are oils, they're lipids. Opiates are water-soluble. So with the invention of the syringe, the discovery of morphine, the creation of morphine, it eclipsed cannabis as a painkiller, for which it was widely being used in the 19th century, because of the power of morphine. Even though morphine and opiates don't address all kinds of pain, actually cannabis is a broader range in terms of the kinds of pain it can ameliorate. Still, you know, opiates are great painkillers. Why does it fall into disrepute? Well, first of all, it should be said in the dispensatory of the U.S., when cannabis is described, it's described literally for 100 different ailments. which is phenomenal, the range of ailments that was being recommended for, which again is very much in sync with what people experience today and what scientists and what the doctors in California discovered firsthand when California legalized marijuana in 1996, and they can actually begin to do certain kinds of research, not federally sanctioned research, but they can observe what's happening with patients. Why did it fall into disrepute? I mean, partly it was those cultural factors with morphine in the hypodermic syringe, but the prohibition has a lot to do with it. It ended the use of cannabis as a medicine, or it drove it underground, and it had to be rediscovered. And the key figure in my mind that facilitated this rediscovery of the medicinal uses of cannabis, which had been buried when prohibition was implemented. The key guy is Dr. Todd McArea, a physician in the United States who was briefly employed, ironically, by the U.S. government, by the National Institute of Mental Health, to oversee its marijuana research in the 1960s, since a lot of young people were taking marijuana, including sons and daughters of congressmen, things like that. They started to get weird about it. What's happening with my son? Does this stuff, does this damage your brain? What's going on? And actually, the government wanted there to be serious research into marijuana for a very brief moment, and they brought on McArea. But I don't think they realized where he was quite coming from, because he was already very sympathetic to cannabis. He was a user himself. And he went there very, very open minded. He thought he was going to do great stuff. They wouldn't let him, but what he did do was scour the depths of the National Library of Medicine and rescued all these old documents that had been, literally gathering dust on a shelf. And he found the original medical paper written by William O'Shaughnessy. It was published in 1842, the first account in Western medicine literature of hashish as a therapeutic agent. And he found a whole bunch of reports from the 1850s and beyond, and compiled this in a volume called Marijuana Medical Papers, which is almost like a textbook of all the things you would never learn in medical school. Articles spoke for themselves. So he really kind of triggered the beginning of a rebirth of interest in the medicinal uses of marijuana in the 1970s. And when I look at it culturally, the first group to really get into using it, the first phenomenon of marijuana used as a medicine in the United States, in North America, was midwives using it as a birthing aid. Stephen Gaskin's farm in the Tennessee, that's what they were doing, And even before Robert Randall won that Titanic court battle where he won the right to use the only medicine that helped stop his glaucoma, which was cannabis, arguing medical necessity. This is in 1976. Even earlier, these women were very consciously using cannabis as a birthing. And I see that as it's actually a traditional usage of cannabis going back centuries. It's always been part of the midwifery's medicine bag, as it were, part of the herbal armament, what would you call it? The medicine chest. But then you have Robert Randall, and he wins this very important court case, and about a couple of dozen medical necessity cases came forward in the United States and won the right to use as a medical exceptions to use cannabis as medicine. They would be supplied by the government, 300 pre-rolled, really gnarly, skanky cigarettes. I've been around poor these poor people, they used to smoke this stuff. It's the worst cannabis you can imagine. But that's what it is. They get it from the government. The fact that they still get it from the government today speaks volumes about the schizophrenic relationship that the federal government has with cannabis, saying it has no medical value, while at the same time supplying what I think is now only 4 people left who are grandfathered in after they stopped this program, the Compassionate IND program, that was implemented as a result of Robert Randall's heroic efforts initially. But that's an important part of the medical marijuana scene. But really, the key turning point is AIDS, San Francisco, and the fact that it was the only thing that was helping people with AIDS, and they were dropping like flies. I was living in San Francisco when AIDS was first discovered in the early 1980s. People were getting sick, they didn't know why, and then all of a sudden this weird AIDS went incurable, and the only thing that helped was cannabis. It was the only thing when when these very potent protease inhibitor drugs were finally invented that could that keep the HIV count down, the only way to keep these medicines down, they were so toxic you'd throw up, was to smoke marijuana. So it caught on like wildfire. The cannabis as a medicinal substance was emerged big time in San Francisco initially, and then in the rest of California, as a result of Dennis Perone and his efforts with the Cannabis Buyers Club in San Francisco, and then there were other emulators, and it grew from there. But that was really the break. It was a unique situation in San Francisco. The political establishment was okay with it. Perone was willing to do whatever it took. He wasn't, he risked a lot to do this publicly. And 10,000 people joined that club. Most of the people on staff were people with AIDS. At least half the members were people with AIDS. And it was an amazing thing that went on, an amazing humanitarian phenomenon. Dennis is an amazing character in that way. But that to me is the turning point, not just with medical marijuana, but the turning point in marijuana in American culture. As I step back and look at the history, it's kind of implicit in Smoke Signals, the way I wrote it up, but I didn't say in Smoke Signals this was the case. It really is structured like a screenplay, where you have two plot points. That's your classic screenplay, how it's structured. Half an hour into the play, some event happens that sends the story spinning off in a different direction, unexpectedly. And then about 30 minutes before it ends, a second event happens, spins the plot again in another direction that you wouldn't expect. So the first plot point for cannabis in the Americas, in my mind, is the 1960s. Totally unexpected that millions of young people would be smoking pot. When it was made illegal less than 30 years earlier. And then the second plot point is medical marijuana in California and the breakthrough in 1996 and the Proposition 215, which to my mind, what we're seeing now in the States with the legalization measures passing in Washington and Colorado, to me, in many ways, that's the culmination of what happened in 1996, what Dennis did. It more so a culmination of something than the beginning of something. We'll see. It's a very dynamic situation now with cannabis and the shifting cultural landscape. But to my mind, the drug war was fought and we won. The drug war is lost. Cannabis won. Cannabis, wherever it has come to in a different culture, as it's migrated around the world, because it was so valuable to people, from culture to culture, from society to society, starting in the Kush, going into India and Persia and the Muslim world in Europe and across the slave ships across the ocean into the Americas. Wherever it went, it was never rejected. It was always made part of the culture. Even if it became controversial in the culture, it was still adopted by the people, at least some segment of people, so that it stayed there. And then it would move on to other parts of the world, other cultures. And cannabis conquered the world. So, the drug warrior lost. They can't beat a plant.